There's been a lot of changes on the platform and a lot of changes in creation in terms of even AI. You can fight it all you want to, it's going to happen.
I think it's really easy to be judgmental when you're approaching YouTube, whether that's, towards other channels. Why do they have so many subscribers and I don't? But I think what's even more harmful is to be judgmental towards yourself. Like, I'm just not cut out for this, or YouTube hates my channel.
Everyone wants to be full-time on YouTube because they want to do what they enjoy and make money off of it. Yeah. But if you're focusing just on that end goal of making money off of it, you're not enjoying what you're setting out to do, which is enjoying what you're doing.
I was an expert at what I was doing, but I was a newbie when it came to making videos. And that's sometimes a hard mental shift, I think, especially when you have like entrepreneurs who maybe have 7-8-figure businesses off YouTube and they come here and they can't get 100 views.
People are afraid to experiment because the results are usually not favorable.
The fear of failure is one of the biggest things that holds people back.
I think for a lot of creators, it's also fear of success. They just don't realize that.
Hey, welcome to the Video Creators Podcast presented by vidIQ. You know how you put a lot of time and energy into your YouTube channel for not nearly enough growth? Yep, we get it. We are here today to help you change that.
Hello creators, how are you guys? Welcome back to another Video Creators Podcast brought to you by vidIQ like we do every week for you. Just hanging out today with Blake and Ingrid. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. It's the new year, man.
It's 2024. Yep. It's crazy.
2024. Came quick. Didn't even know it was here.
I know. You guys have any, I guess, maybe not resolutions, but maybe like goals or things you're working towards this next year?
I am working towards having a thriving garden this year. That's going to be one of my goals. Yes.
Where are we at right now with the garden?
I've learned a lot. I pruned a lot of things. It looks really sad right now because it's the winter time, obviously. But I've learned a lot and I've learned which plants I like. I've learned which plants I love, and I learned which plants got ripped out and did not make the cut. Yes.
Yeah, for me, I don't know. I was talking to Sam earlier too, and actually I was telling you Ingrid as well about this earlier, that I kind of want to get back into learning about something, learning something again, getting better at a skill. And I play guitar, and I kind of want to get back into that and start just broadening the scope of that a little bit more. So I think this year that's what I'm going to invest some of my time into, and maybe be as good as Sam. But
maybe at the end of the year we can have a duel, a guitar duel, see who's better.
Like with smack each other with the guitars, that'd be a little bit weird. We can do that. Yeah, sure.
For me, I actually really want to do more on YouTube for my personal channel. I mean, it's always been anytime I have time, which isn't much at all, I like to try to work on stuff, but that's just kind of a side passion project. I'd love to just put some more effort into that and see kind of what happens. And it's kind of my creative outlet as well. So definitely want to work on that more this year. Yeah.
Sounds like great goals.
Well, speaking of goals, we work with creators every day who have lots of goals when it comes to YouTube and growing their channels. And I feel like we talk a lot on the podcast about very tactical, very tangible things, strategies that a creator can use to help grow their channel, reach more people. And I wanted today's episode to be a little bit more around mindset when it comes into what are just some best practices or some good sort of mindset shifts for a creator to be in to avoid burnout, to actually hit their goals, and kind of for the long run, really find themselves succeeding and winning on the platform. So I wrote down a couple of things. I'll be really curious to pick your guys' brains because, you guys work with creators too on different capacities and just kind of see a lot of different sides of kind of where the creator's at sort of in their journey on YouTube. So for me, when I was thinking about this, I think one of the first things that creates a really great mindset for a creator is to be teachable. So maybe even just hearing that at kind of face value, does that spark any thoughts for you guys?
Well, I mean, I'd say past year alone, and even this year going into, there's been a lot of changes on the platform and a lot of changes in creation in terms of even AI as well too. Who knows what this year's going to bring because of that. Yeah, you're going to have to be open to those things happening and how to deal with it. So, and if you can fight it all you want to, it's going to happen. So being open to those changes and embracing them is probably going to be the best thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when I think of be teachable, I think it's more of, for myself, not even just myself, but just other other content creators, I think that one of the traps that a lot of YouTubers fall into is, my video is the best video that's out there. So I think being open to a different perspective, maybe open to some honest feedback, being willing to take that in, step back, be a little removed from the content, and maybe try some different things.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about like sometimes you got to be a student. I talk with a lot of creators who they don't really watch YouTube. That's actually one of the questions I like to ask a lot. Do you watch a lot of YouTube yourself? And it's either yes, I watch a lot of YouTube. It's either that or, well, I watch some of the other competitors, some of the other channels sort of like mine, and then that's about it. Or it's no, I don't watch it at all. Like I just heard you can make money from YouTube, so I want to do what I'm already doing and start filming it and that kind of thing. Which it's not bad to want to earn a living or make money from YouTube, but it's a skill at the end of the day. I really feel like you need to educate and learn like what makes a good YouTube video in the first place.
I feel like so many creators get stuck in a rut of just they think they're experimenting and they think they're really trying something different, but all they're doing is putting out the same kind of thing. And if you're doing the same thing over and over and you're not getting a result, it's kind of like the definition of insanity. Tim used to always say, well, how's that working for you? And that would always, every creator that he ever asked that to would say, well, not very well.
Right.
So when you're looking at your own channel and you're looking at your own content or your own analytics and you're not making movement in something, maybe now is a good time of the year to maybe just reassess some things, and how well is that actually working for you? And if it's not, then maybe what tweaks can you make?
Yeah, even if it is working for you, you still have to be on the forefront of like making sure that you're constantly betting yourself, experimenting, because what can happen then is you get bored of your content, your audience will get bored of your content. I've worked with creators many times who have done what's worked for them for so long, and eventually it stops working. So you have to be open, and industries change all the time. I know, like when AI came in the writing strike happened too. It's like everyone's distraught over like these new things coming in that we really can't stop. And it's like as much as we don't want to change it is working. Like what did work is working or has worked. You have to be okay with reinventing yourself.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm thinking like one of our core values here at Video Creators is change is good. Which I think that's for me, that's a hard thing to embrace sometimes. Change it's scary
for a lot of people, right?
Yeah. And I think as a creator too, like your channel, your content, it's kind of your baby. Like it's kind of a vulnerable thing. And so especially to sort of put yourself out there, and like Ingrid, what you had said earlier, I hear that a lot. Like, well, it's not an issue with my content, there's probably some other thing, like a switch that I can flip in my algorithm settings that's going to, make the algorithm love me today. But that can be kind of a hard thing to sort of have that mindset of like, well, how could I be a student and like just not assume my content's amazing? And that's clearly not the issue here. But really like, well, how could we watch more channels? How could we learn from them and kind of continue to grow, take our best foot forward?
Yeah, I think just remaining humble and teachable is a good course of action.
Definitely.
Yeah. I think one thing for me tying out all of this that I really lean with a lot of creators I work with is like you just have to really remember and to like that you enjoy making content, or find a place that you're enjoying making the content. Because it's so easy, and I found myself doing it. You get caught up into the potential of making it full time and making money off YouTube, which is all great benefits. But if that's your sole focus, you a lot of times will give up. And, for me, like I haven't worked on my channel like, over a year now, and I've been wanting to start something new up. But my whole goal with whatever I decide to do in this new year is I have to make sure that it's something that I like to create, and I just want to create for the sake of creating and let it perform the way it does before diving into the intricacies of analytics and figuring out what I can change. But just enjoy making the content. Any creator that I've seen that's doing really, really well that I've watched or that I love or that we know of genuinely just loves making content, and that's what keeps them going, right? So
yeah, I hear a lot from like the really successful creators. It's like A, they've put a lot of time into it, but B, they would be doing this anyway. Like even if it weren't paying what it is for them. Yeah.
A lot of them
they did for a while.
Like, it wasn't doing anything, but they still did it anyways because they really enjoyed it. And eventually something caught, right? And that's what it is too.
Definitely. Yeah. I want to pull us back because a second ago we were talking about like, it can be kind of a vulnerable thing as a creator. It can be difficult to sort of even know like, well, what are the things that I need to do in order to grow? It's really easy to start looking kind of horizontally at other channels and sort of measuring your own success against maybe other different channels. And so I think another sort of mindset shift that I found really helpful is to just be curious. I think it's really easy to be judgmental when you're approaching YouTube, whether that's towards other channels, sort of making judgments as far as, well, why do they have so many subscribers and I don't? But I think what's even more harmful is to be judgmental towards yourself. Like, I'm just not cut out for this, or YouTube hates my channel, or there's no way, like there's a problem with me. Like nobody wants to watch me. Have you guys had conversations around, this sort of thing with creators? I know you have, Ingrid.
Yeah, I was actually just listening actually to one of the coaching conversations the other day, the one-on-one coaching program that we have. One of the creators, pretty decent sized channel, has been on the platform for a while, and I see that this is a trap that happens a lot. Didn't keep blinders on, let competition in on what's going on. And it really came from a place of, well, what's this person doing? And what's that person doing? And then let it in a little too much to the point where he actually strayed a little from the value that he is actually bringing to his channel. And I'm very familiar with his channel, actually. So it's really more about, kind of like you said, just kind of, a little bit too much of what's going on with the channel next door and kind of forgetting a little bit about the focus, Yeah,
that happens so often. I've dealt with so many people, same idea too. And it's especially when it comes to like channels who are trying to find their voice, even in their niche. Like I understand like there are channels who do thumbnails a certain way or titles a certain way within your niche. And they're like, well, I'm doing it this way because X channel is doing it this way too. And it's working for them. Like, why isn't it working for me? It's like, well, what if we didn't look at them and tried something completely different to stand out, right? And then on the flip side too, there are people who, like you mentioned, will go astray. And I'm guilty of that too in the past too, where I was creating a channel that I enjoyed and then got so lost in trying to make content that would perform well that I was copying all the things Mr. Beast that didn't make any sense for my content, to the point where it's like I look at it now and being like, what was I doing, right? And that's just the trap I've seen so many times people fall into, to the over editing, all those sorts of things.
Yeah, I think it's easy, and I think that's kind of like hitting the nail on the and I think too it's sort of like, well, there's a judgment being made that it's like that works and it has to work on my channel, and if it doesn't, like something is wrong, or I'm shadow banned, or the algorithm is against me, kind of a thing. So I found that it can really help mindset wise, just to be a little healthier, kind of approaching everything with curiosity and just asking why. Like be annoying, ask why for everything. I always encourage, if you're gonna exactly, just be really curious. If you're wanting to do what Mr. Beast is doing, like ask yourself, well, why am I clicking on every single one of his videos? Or why isn't it really working for me? Like, why do I personally not really like this type of channel? If you're finding yourself watching someone and leaving the video after a few seconds, ask yourself why. Maybe you found a new channel you like and you watched 3 or 4 of their videos in a row. That can be really helpful too, to ask why, because usually there's like a pattern or something that they're doing. It's more of like a concept or a strategy that then you can take that, be like, well, what would that look like for my context? And like Ingrid, you said the word focus earlier. I think that's really important too. Like, how do I stay focused on my lane? And then maybe, we talked about that book a little while ago, Steal Like an Artist. How can I take some of these concepts over here, these patterns I'm seeing, and use it for my context? Like, what does that look like? How could I just be curious to try stuff and experiment?
Yeah, I just think it's really important for creators, when we think about mindset, to maybe have a picture of what your target audience looks like. So you have that reminder, just those little visual things, those little visual cues around, because I think it's very, like I said, it's very human to let the periphery in, let those other channels and what's going on there. And you yourself said, Sam, like if you find yourself on a channel, or let's say you go to a channel that is a successful YouTuber, and you're like trying to analyze it. Well, why are they doing this? Just remember, always ask yourself, are you their target audience? To make sure that, you're really looking at it objectively versus just trying to replicate, like Blake was saying. He was just doing everything because he knew it worked for Mr. Beast, but not necessarily for himself. And I think that we're all kind of guilty at that at some point. So you have to just kind of step back. And that's the thing that I always encourage creators also, when they go look at a channel that's really killing it, they're just getting tons of views consistently on those videos. Well, when you're looking at that, it's not necessarily about copying what they're specifically doing, but what's the structure? I think breaking things down to the very ABCs of it, the 1, 2, 3s, when you can break it down to the bare minimum, the bare bones, then you have like a formula, maybe, that then you can use and apply to your things specifically.
Yeah. And there's so much value that could be gained from that too, because that can really give you some topic ideas. That's maybe it's like a style or a format of video. Like we just talked the other week about formats. Maybe you find a pattern or like something that's maybe Mr. Beast or maybe a different type of channel is doing like a particular thing. And then your specific niche has none of, it's like a total blue ocean kind of a thing. Maybe you could almost pioneer this like really interesting new format that's maybe going to catapult your channel forward. But I think being curious and sort of approaching content in that way and watching a lot of YouTube can really educate you, like with a lot of that stuff. There's one other thing that I want to touch on here, just with like, try not to be judgmental and just to be curious as you're moving forward. I get this question sometimes, and it makes my heart hurt when I hear this. You guys have probably heard this too, but I've had some creators ask me, like, am I cut out for this? Like, can I actually do this? And personally, I believe anybody can succeed on YouTube. What do you guys think with a question like that?
I've seen some wild channels on YouTube. I'm like, there's a space for everything. Trust me, I've seen it. So, and that comes from a place of, again, where I come back to of like, you've stopped enjoying making content. You're so focused on trying to get somewhere that you're not enjoying the journey, which essentially is what the point we're trying to do. Everyone wants to be full-time on YouTube because they want to do what they enjoy and make money off of it. Yeah. But if you're focusing just on that end goal of making money off of it, you're not enjoying what you're setting out to do, which is enjoying what you're doing. Right. So for those people, that's usually what's happening is they've lost passion for what they're doing. They've lost focus on who their audience is, and they really don't know who they're making content for. So they just kind of feel frantic. They're letting all the input of what other channels are doing, what their analytics are saying, rather than trusting. Okay, let's think about this from, again, go back to your target audience, redo that, think about where you're going. And sometimes just taking a break. I told people, like, maybe you haven't done community content in a while. Like, everyone's so focused on discoverable content. Maybe it's making a community video, just, having fun with that, taking the stress off yourself and enjoying that. And it might surprise you how well that video does sometimes too.
What was that you said? Have fun? Have fun with it?
Yeah, fun.
That's a good, important reminder. I think that needs to be said more too. Like, have fun with it. You're not going to break your channel.
YouTube. Everyone has, like, even TikTok, anything. Everyone started off having fun with videos, and at some point a career built around it. But it started off of you enjoying making the content.
Ingrid looks like she has some thoughts.
Okay, go for it.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think that the majority of YouTubers definitely started out as a passion project and really into something. But there are a lot of business people. True. A lot even in our own audience, the podience here, where they came to YouTube with a purpose. I actually came to YouTube with a purpose. It wasn't so much about the joy of creating a video. I dreaded actually making the content. And I think that showed. It really showed. So one of the things that I really was not very good at was being patient with learning and failing forward. Because that's the thing. And this goes back to, being teachable also, because I was an expert in my space. So when I went to do my first video, I was an expert at what I was doing, but I was a newbie when it came to making videos. And that's sometimes a hard mental shift, I think, especially when you have like entrepreneurs who maybe have 7-8 figure businesses off YouTube and they come here and they can't get 100 views. And that's frustrating.
Oh yeah.
So
absolutely.
It's hard. It's hard to approach this. So like, what would you two say to that person?
I had so many thoughts.
Are you having fun? I would say, are you having fun? I don't know. To me, it still draws back.
But to them, that's my point, though, Blake. Is it's not about fun for them. For them, it's about authority. It's about maybe trying to make a sale. It's about doing it productively. So, what's the mindset then for that person? I'm not disagreeing with you in a sense.
I know you're right.
Yeah. But it's almost like there's two different kinds of creators out there.
I just find it hard to play the long game if that's just the only draw for you. It's like, it's not working, I'm getting frustrated. It's like, well, there's got to be some, because I mean, at the other, for me watching, if I don't find the passion going through, then maybe that's what I'm sensing too, not watching it for that reason.
Then maybe it's about hacking this a little bit.
Okay.
I'm going to cut you off here, Sam. Maybe it's a little bit about, and the audience is probably going to go crazy. Let Sam talk. But maybe it's about what's the fun thing, though, and it may not be around making content. It may be about being the authority in your space or making more money, in your business, having more leads. So maybe it's about finding that deeper why a little bit.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I was going to say there's probably something, even if you remove YouTube from the equation, there's probably something fun about their business that they're passionate about and they care about. Yeah. So I don't see this with everybody, but for a lot of like this type of person that we're talking about, they come over to YouTube and they don't have a why. Or let me rephrase that. They have a why. They've just never defined the why. So, they care about the business and it's fun for them. They just want to reach more people on YouTube. And then the reason it's not fun and it's frustrating is because it's not working for most people.
Well, I guess that's a good point too. Yeah. Ingrid and I chatted earlier about one of the other coaches on the team who like gets rejuvenated through working on his business, which to me is not my mindset. So I guess from that perspective, it would make sense of like, he's enjoying figuring out what doesn't work and why. And Ingrid is very much like that too when it comes to analytics too and digging into that. So that's fun for her. Where for me, it's like, that's a bit of like, I'd much rather go for like the outside of like, how can I figure to craft a really beautiful story or a thumbnail? So that does make sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it really, no matter what viewpoint you take, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You've heard us say that many times. It's about getting reps in, regardless of, where you are at whatever stage in your, I guess, creator journey or business journey. YouTube's going to be new for most creators. And even if it's been a while, I haven't created on my personal channel in over a year, which is just the weirdest thing because I made content for 11 straight years. But I needed a break. I'm coming back. And I was one of the larger channels in my space, but I needed a break. And sometimes we need a break, and I need to find my deeper why for coming back myself. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, this is a great segue because maybe just to kind of zoom us back out. We talked about be teachable. That could be a really powerful thing. Be curious. I think be patient is another thing too. I think, like you had mentioned, it's a marathon. It just takes time. I think there's a lot of creators that have a very, let's make this thing blow up fast mentality, which happens. It can happen. But for the majority of channels and the majority of people, like it just takes some time. Really, like I said, I think YouTube is a skill. It just takes time. If we're going to pick up a new instrument or like learn a new language, like it just takes time to practice and repeat and, do that over and over, and then it's just going to take some time to see the results too. So I find myself reminding creators of that a lot too. Like, let's just zoom out a little bit. What's kind of the long-term goal here? And then how do we just slowly push towards that?
I want Blake to start a guitar channel.
Me too.
I can graph the journey. Yeah. I'll make one of like me trying to learn off watching Sam's channel. And then when it just falls flat, like don't watch his channel.
When you never get better.
I was really kind of thinking that the two of you could even collaborate then if you each had
I
a
mean,
guitar channel.
I'd be happy to like, and it is a fun part too, collaborating with people. And actually, I was talking with Ingrid again about this earlier. Is like the idea for me this year too, as well as going into and trying to build more community or interactions with people, especially in such a digital world. And being on YouTube too, like that being a lonely space, like you're literally doing this for an audience you can't see. So being able to collaborate with other creators makes that journey a lot more fun. And I've heard that from many big creators too. But yeah, I mean, a side note, like you can teach me on a video if you want how to play guitar. Well, I can play guitar, but do what you do. It'd be fun. You can watch me fail. It'd be a great story.
Yeah, let's do it. This will be on the channel. Keep an eye out.
Yeah.
No, this is good. A good point though. I think being collaborative too, I think really helps mindset wise. That can mean a lot of different things. We definitely recommend creators to collaborate with other like-minded creators. I think the nice thing about YouTube is that in a lot of scenarios, there's a lot of kind of like everybody wins types of scenarios. You can share an audience with somebody else. It's not necessarily like, oh, if this other creator is doing this similar type of thing as me, that it's like, most of the time that audience can be shared. And a lot of those similar viewers are going to come over and watch your channel as well. So seeing other creators as potential collaborators versus competition can be helpful.
What if you stop viewing them as like competition and start viewing them as like your coworkers in a way, right?
It's and I love this conversation. I think it's great, but I go back to myself even as a younger creator. And even though they were all my friends, but it was really hard to not, and maybe it's just because I'm just a natural, I was an athlete growing up, I'm just naturally competitive. It was hard not to think of them also as competition. And
interesting.
So do you guys have any practical steps of how to remove yourself from the competitor mindset so that you could also focus and really have a true spirit of collaboration?
That's hard for me. I'm not very competitive at all, so I'd be curious what you think, Sam.
I'm very competitive, so
I'm not. Yeah.
So
I know Tim's competitive.
Yeah, I feel like there is some level of humanness that it's just gonna happen. Like there's gonna be the competitive spirit, especially if you're just naturally like more of a competitive person. Like that's just gonna bubble up, I think, very naturally. And there may be different opinions on this. I'm really curious to hear what you guys think too. But for me personally, I feel like if there's an opportunity for me, rather than sort of listen to this competitive part of me that wants to just kind of, compete and fight, against this other person and just see them as the enemy kind of a thing, what would it look like to instead like ask them questions or to get in touch with them? Or like just maybe an example that comes up is, let's say they did a similar type of video than the one that I did and it went way further. And it would be easy for me to feel like, well, what the heck? You get really competitive and really defensive at that point. But what would it look like to approach that person more from like a relational standpoint and be like, this video was awesome. Like, I'd love to just pick your brain. Like, how did you approach the planning for that video? Or what did that look like for you? And then you can just kind of work together. And then maybe again, it kind of comes back to the be teachable kind of thing. Like maybe you can learn a mindset thing that kind of helps you with your process. But then you're sort of like working together at that point. And then who knows, maybe at some point down the road, you guys can make content together. I think there's a lot of benefits that could come from that too.
There's massive benefits actually collaborating with other channels, whether they're larger than you, smaller than you, it doesn't really matter. Obviously, if they have an audience, you just want them to be like you guys were talking about, the same audience, because it doesn't help if it's a different audience. That's not helpful at all. But that's a great way to grow, especially if you're a younger creator, younger meaning channel size. But I feel like the one thing about sometimes when I think of like competitive spirit too, like I'm the first person to celebrate every single one of my YouTuber friends' journeys and milestones, whether they're, I view them as competition because they're in my space. And, I have to air quote that. But, I think kind of the thing that's really hard as a YouTuber is to not look at their successes as your failures. you know, and I think that's the mindset that you have to just really protect yourself from, is celebrate the wins. You know, it's okay to have competition. Just know that your goal is going to be your goal. Nobody can, you know, outdo that for you. It's okay. Let them sell it. Let them get 1 million subscribers. That's wonderful. They have their thing that they're doing. Stay in your lane. Stay focused on that.
I agree. Yeah. And I think too, I don't want to say like competition is bad, because I think being competitive can really make you better. Like, it's making me, there's a professional soccer player. He's a goalie who played for years, like on the highest levels. And he started a YouTube channel a couple of years ago, and it's awesome. Really, really interesting stuff. He just tells a lot of stories. But as a goalie, like, that's one position. But like on a team, they're going to have like 2 or 3 or 4 goalkeepers, but they're competing against each other for the starting spot. And he talks a lot about like, what does that relationship look like with the other goalies? Because it's like all of you are sort of competing for the spot, but you're on the same team. Yeah. So like, he was really talking about, you know, really being collaborators first, and then being competitive on the side, because there's healthy competition. So, you know, they would really compete, push each other higher and higher to get better, you know, become a better player. But then it's like, whoever gets picked at the end of the day, they're just going to support that person. And Ingrid, what you were just saying reminded me of that. Like, well, yeah, you know, the other creators, if they get a video that goes super far, like, awesome, like, let's celebrate that. But there can be some healthy competition to kind of like make each other better, kind of a thing too.
Sure. And you know what? At the end of the day, it's really a great analogy, Sam. And it makes me think too of YouTube in general. It's good for you, and even like, you know, friends who have channels that are in your space. It's good for you all to sharpen each other, you know, be teachable, learn from each other. Because also when you do actually collaborate, it's language for the YouTube algorithm to understand, you know, who the ideal viewer is for your content. And if it starts to understand that, and also starts to see like Sam's audience and Blake's audience, maybe they're in the same space. And once Alfie that day, that's my name for when the algorithm's on a good day, understands, you know, who the audience is, then maybe it'll surface some of Blake's content to who it kind of understands who the ideal viewer is a little bit better. It's all language, and that's a healthy thing. That's not necessarily a bad thing. And there's enough YouTube to go around. There are so many viewers. It blows my mind how many views videos get. And Sam may be killing it one day or 1 week, 1 month, and another month, Blake's going to be killing it. And eventually, I doubt it, especially if you've collaborated with each other, it lifts everything, right? It does. It lifts everything. Yeah. And you never know, you know, something can hit later on as well. But if you guys, especially if you've collaborated together, it could impact your channel down the line. I've seen that happen more times than not.
So one thing you mentioned earlier too, which I actually like to unpack for everyone else too, is you mentioned having the same audience. What do you mean by that for collaboration?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So not necessarily, well, the same kind of viewer, because so let's take this guitar example a little bit further.
I love it. Yes.
Maybe we have an electric guitar channel versus an acoustic. I don't know much about this. This is not my niche.
Good example.
Thank you. Versus an acoustic guitar, right? Both guitar players, so maybe they're interested in similar musics. I guess, I don't know, but yet different. So would that be a good collaboration or not?
I think so. I was even thinking like, for me, like guitar and then maybe even drums, like they still blend together at some point, right? Okay. Because they could do a song together.
Music is the through line, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The through line.
There's a guy who's great. Blake, you've heard of this guy, I think, Churchfront. His name's Jake something. The channel's called Churchfront, but he does a lot of like production.
Sorry, Jake, if you're listening.
Sorry, I don't remember your last name.
Just totally butchered.
Jake or Sebastian, one or the other. No kidding. I don't know.
He does a lot of like production, like audio and lights and stage design sort of stuff, just like helping churches with that kind of a thing. But a part of sort of that environment is the musicians too, you know, the actual like recording of the guitars and the live audio of the drums and that kind of stuff. So he's done some really great collabs that I've seen in the past where he'll collab with kind of a bigger guitar channel or like a bigger drums channel, but he sort of tailors the topic for his audience, kind of a thing. So they'll still talk about kind of, well, how do you get the types of sounds so that it sounds good in the church building, kind of thing. Like he's collabing with a guitar player and potentially sharing that audience, but sort of the topic of the video, it still fits kind of his value proposition and like his kind of main core audience too. So that's just one
when
example.
does it not fit? When does it not fit?
I would say maybe like, let's say he did a collab and the whole topic of the video was about like, maybe it was like tips for guitar maintenance, like how to clean your guitar the right way and replacing the strings, that kind of thing. I feel like
that one.
I think it would still work.
I feel like that's so unrelated to production.
If churches own, because some churches own the instruments to give to their, people who are doing on a Sunday,
yeah,
they want to maintain them, right? I was thinking like, let's have it, if there's church stuff, and all of a sudden we're doing like, the fashion runway. That's two different audiences, way completely.
Oh, well,
yeah,
that is different. Yeah.
Well, there goes my idea out the window.
Cancel that channel. Yeah.
Cancel. Yeah, that's not happening anymore.
But I think collaborations, that's having a collaborative mindset just from different perspectives. And we talked about collaborative mindset here from a couple different viewpoints, right? Which I think is very healthy. That's definitely something to lean into.
Yeah. And
what
I
else,
think,
guys?
Well, even in just like another maybe thought when it comes to collaborating, like it doesn't always have to mean like an actual like literal collab with another similar creator for the sake of content. I think just being around other creators can be really helpful. Like when Video Labs
a great idea.
was still a thing, it was so interesting to see, by the end of the Video Labs, well, maybe I should say for anybody listening who's not familiar with Video Labs, it's no longer a thing, but it was a group coaching program that we did a little while ago. And it was so interesting to see, like, I feel like the majority of people who got to the end of Video Labs, the thing that was the most helpful for them was just the collaborative environment, to be able to talk with other creators, get feedback from one another. That was such a helpful thing for them.
And we still have that though. We have, vidIQ Max, which meets in, a Discord group and they're collaborating within there. And we also have one-on-one coaching, which is still collaborative, just not on a bigger scale, like back and forth with coach the entire time. So those things still exist within vidIQ.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for myself and so many creators, having like a little YouTube mastermind with even people from very different niches, that can be helpful too, because sometimes it's just getting that fresh set of eyes or perspective, because we get so close to our content, not just analytics, but just content in general, especially if you edit your own content. If you edit your own content, I guarantee you're way too close to it. And so you can't think straight around it or rationally, especially when it comes to titles and thumbnails. And sometimes it's just good to have, another voice that understands your language.
Yeah. Well, it can be a grind too. I mean, like we talked about, it's a long-term thing. It takes a lot of time. I think it's really easy to sort of fall into the motions and just, all right, well, it's another week. I need to get another video out. I got to feed this to YouTube and maybe I'm just tired. And it can be lonely too. Like if you're kind of doing that on your own, it gets pretty tough. It kind of rubs on you. So even in a collaborative environment, having somebody else just watching your content and saying like, this was awesome, great job on that video. It is pretty refreshing to just feel like, okay, we're in this thing together. It makes me think of even my brother just the other week ran a marathon for the first time, and he ran with a pace group. And it was a group of them that all kept pace together because it's the same kind of thing. Like it really motivates you to keep moving forward when there's others like right there with you doing that too.
You said something that really stuck out to me. You said, like, if you're in this grind, you're in that hamster wheel kind of a mindset. This episode is actually something that could be very valuable, because I feel like when you are in that grind, that's when you let competition come in and derail you. You get very impatient. you are not curious. You're definitely not teachable because you're right. Everybody else is wrong. You're frustrated. So I think that this is a really great and valuable episode. I'm curious, Sam, what else would you say to somebody else? Like, is there like a key component, another key component to this?
Yeah, I'd say, I think the last thing that comes to mind as far as just mindset goes is to don't let fear kind of take the driver's seat. Try to be fearless when you're going into YouTube. I think the fear of failure is one of the biggest things that holds people back. And this sort of pulls from a lot of what we've already talked about. I think if it's about being teachable and like experimenting with content, if it's sort of like the long-term gain versus trying to make this thing happen really, really fast and it's not working, like a lot of these things can breed fear or the fear of failure. And then it's hard to move forward from that. If we're just approaching our channel and approaching our content from a place of, just trying to force this thing to work and maybe even just being afraid to try something new, like that really holds creators back. I see analysis paralysis happen a lot too. If it's just kind of like, I'm only stuck doing one type of video over and over and over because I'm afraid to try anything else because YouTube might shut me down, or I might get a video that bombs and then my channel's done forever, kind of a thing. Do you guys see, when you're working with your creators, do you see, whether it's fear of failure or fear of something else, do you see that a lot with the creators that you work with?
Fear, definitely. I would say that it's not always fear of failure, though. I think for a lot of creators, it's also fear of success. They just don't realize that.
Ooh, interesting.
Because if you succeed at this thing that you're working so hard at, now you got to keep it up.
Yeah, that's happened to me with a video before. I posted a video really well, and that stressed the heck out of me for like a while. So, to the point where I didn't want to.
Is that the one that I helped you with the thumbnail for that one? I take credit for that one.
Which maybe.
The watch? It was the Apple Watch one?
Oh, well, did I teach you how to do that one? I think I did it my own.
Yeah, I gave you the thumbnail. That was in Video Labs.
Blake, you had a good coach.
Well, clearly you didn't remember me, so whatever.
I had Tim for the first little bit, and then Sam came in, and I was disappointed for a little while there. But
I get it. Yeah, whatever.
Well, Tim is the man.
That's true.
But I do think that fear of success can also really derail somebody just as easily as fear of failure. I have a lot of creators who they get pigeonholed by some of their fears, and they're just like so afraid to try something new, and that's where, I would go back to the be curious part, sit back, what's really happening here, and don't be afraid to experiment. I think experiments can be more helpful than people realize. Sometimes just trying something different can be fun.
Yeah, but that's the fear that comes along with it too, though. People are afraid to experiment because the results are usually not favorable. Usually, they can be, but they try something new. I mean, it's jarring for your audience, all those sorts of things too, that you might not see the results right away, and they cancel it right away.
Yeah. Or flip your mindset. What is it that you're actually trying to achieve?
Exactly, yeah.
Definitely. I would say if you're approaching an experiment, you could actually sort of filter that through every sort of lesson we've just talked about. I think, educate, be teachable. If you're going to experiment, maybe make an educated experiment based on maybe things that you're noticing in other channels. Maybe you do the experiment and it doesn't do super well. Don't be judgmental about it. Be curious about it. Ask yourself, why maybe did it not go quite as far? What am I noticing in the analytics? Maybe what are some small little tweaks I can make for the next experiment? Which kind of leads to the be patient, because an experiment isn't just one time. Like, really be patient. If it's a new direction, maybe a new thumbnail style, something like that, like give it a handful of tries. Give YouTube some time to surface this to the right person too. And then even with the being collaborative too, like get some other people that you trust and friends of yours, other creators, like have them watch it, have them give you some feedback. Even before you post it. We do this in our coaching programs. Send us scripts and then we'll look over it and we'll kind of help with an experiment before publishing it. It's a lot less scary that way too.
Yeah, speaking of experiments too, like if you're a creator who's looking to experiment on your channel and you want someone to collaborate with and help you through these roadblocks and that mindset of like, pushing through the hard times, we'd love to work with you in a one-on-one coaching program here at vidIQ, where you can work with a coach, Monday through Friday, every day, talking through those titles, those thumbnails, and really help put your best foot forward on your channel. If that's something you're interested in, we'd love to hear a bit about your story. And if you want to go register for that, go to get.vidiq.com and we'll see you there. Thanks for listening to another Video Creators Podcast. We'll see you next week. Bye.